Welcome back to Trapani's Choice, episode number 7, part 2 of my most influential comedians of all time. Now, I've been getting a little bit emotional in the build-up to this one, mainly in particular because if I had to choose one comedian, this one would be it, Bill Hicks. Now, to me, I kind of found him a little bit later in life. And I also want to dedicate this episode to the person who introduced me to Bill Hicks. And that's a very close friend of mine, Anthony Firmston. So it's emotional for two reasons. Basically, it reminds me of a time in my life where I was rebelling so much. I was rebelling against everything. And my humor was very dark at that stage. And everything that I did. And I remember being at Firm's place, and we turned on the TV, he put on Bill Hicks for me, and I was just blown away by this guy standing in front of me who did not give a fuck what he said. He was controversial towards absolutely everything, but especially government and religion. Although he was brought up in a religious family, he started comedy when he was about 13 years old. And I just can't even comprehend as a 13-year-old. I was very shy back then, which I've mentioned in other podcasts, how a 13-year-old could get up on a platform where adults perform and do that night after night. And by the age of 16, he was already, excelling in his comedy. One of his favorite comedians growing up was Woody Allen. And you can see in his earlier bits, you can see him sort of mimicking, but shortly after that, that faded away. And that's when you start to become a good comedian, when you start to find yourself and who you are. And that's what he started to do. And none of his family really knew that he was doing this. He was sneaking out at night and, his parents would think he was in bed and he was out doing this. He had a very close friend at school as well that he started performing with. And they started doing skits at school. And they'd go home, rehearse, and then the stage for them was at lunchtime in the yard, and their friends would all be waiting for them to put on a performance, and this is where their act really started to begin. And he wasn't really focusing on doing a solo bit at that stage. It was really with his friend, and his friend ended up moving to another state, which forced Bill to then work on his own, and he started performing on his own. And one thing in particular that really shows is the use of psychedelic drugs. And you can see, to me, it's just the way that his brain functions on such a high level. And I really do believe personally myself that experimenting with these types of drugs has helped him expand his knowledge and thought process so much further. And I remember sitting there and just in awe with the stuff he was saying. I was probably, I'd say 19, 20 at the most when I first got into Bill Hicks. And I just thought, man, I've got to try some mushrooms or some LSD or something. I still never have, but, he's definitely the one person that has put me on that thought process of how can I expand my brain and functionality to that level. And he shows it in his act that he's definitely done it. He would talk about going out and doing large quantities of mushrooms with friends, and there was one time in particular that they actually experienced the spaceship come over. The two of them had the exact same experience, and Bill was communicating with this alien life form, and it explained to him that there is more to life after this, and that that this is all just one big ride, and there's no such thing as death, and we are all one. And it really shows in his act. And there's a bit that I want to show you now where he is talking about drugs, and I find it very funny because it's so clever what he's talking about at the beginning of this, where a positive drug story that you never hear it, and that the news should be telling both sides of the story, and they don't. And but watch this bit, and then I'll talk about it briefly.
You never see positive drug stories on the news, do you? Isn't that weird? Since most of the experiences I've had on drugs were real fucking positive. Who are these morons that are finding it? That's what I want to know. I used to want to call the news. Come over to our house. Watch Tommy. He's a pig. Film him. He's been doing that for hours. He's killing us. You getting all that? You know what I mean? Always that same LSD story, you've all seen it.
Young man on acid thought he could fly, jumped out of a building. What a tragedy.
What a dick. Fuck him. He's an idiot. If he thought he could fly, why didn't he take off from the ground first? Check it out. You don't see ducks lined up to catch elevators to fly south. They fly from the ground, you moron. Quit ruining for everybody. He's a moron. He's dead. Good. We lost a moron. Fucking celebrate. Wow, I just felt the world get lighter. We lost a moron. Put on the Hammer album. I'm ready to dance. We lost a moron. I don't mean to sound cold or cruel or vicious, but I am, so that's the way it comes out. Professional help is being sought. How about a positive LSD story? Wouldn't that be newsworthy just once? To base your decision on information rather than scare tactics and superstitions and lies? I think it would be newsworthy. Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather. You've been fantastic, and I hope you enjoyed it. There is a point. Is there a point to all this? Let's find a point. Is there a point to my act? I would say there is. I have to. The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoyed it. London, you're fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know, in the beginning, he's talking about a man that if he thought he was on LSD and could fly, why didn't he take off from the ground? The reason why that is so funny and clever is because it couldn't be more true. There's no more truth to that. Take off from the ground, it's fucking hilarious. But really towards the end of that bit where he's talking about life being a ride, and it's just one big ride and you have to choose whether you want to be on it or not, that I remember sitting there with Firm and just being absolutely taken over by these words. To me, it was poetry. It wasn't even comedy anymore. I stopped looking at it for the funny side and I just sat there and listened to his words. And I really think he shows, levels of, layers basically of jokes, of meaning to the joke. So one, you could just take it on face value and it's funny, but there's hidden messages in there. And I think we can all take a little bit about what he's saying on board and put it into our lives. So that's what I started changing my style of comedy about it not being just offensive for the sake of being offensive, but actually have hidden messages behind them. And hopefully you can see that in some of my material. And I don't like to get political myself because I don't follow politics as much, but I do appreciate the fact that you can still push these boundaries even if you're not going as deep as what Bill goes into. Now, this next bit, there's, once again, it's very funny and very clever. I do love the bit in this next bit where he's talking about reading a book and the person asks him, what are you reading a book for? And it's brilliant. So just watch this next bit. And there's so much to this that I just love. And I hope you guys enjoy this next bit as well.
And I'm alone, I'm eating, and I'm reading a book, right? Waitress walks over to me. Hey, what you reading for? Sound like the weirdest question you've ever heard? Not what am I reading, but what am I reading for? Well, God damn it, you stumped me. Why do I read? I guess I read for a lot of reasons, and the main one is so I don't end up being a waffle waitress. Fairly high on the list of reasons. But then this trucker in the next booth gets up, stands over me, and goes, well, looks like we got ourselves a reader. What the f***'s going on here? It's not like I walked into a Klan rally in a Boy George outfit. God damn it, it's a book. I read. There, I said it. Waitress goes, why read when you can just flip on the tube? Because it's not the same. What do you think I'm reading? Hee Haw the book?
Now, you can't deny that from this, you can see that he's, he's really pushing the boundaries with everything that he's doing. And it did get to a point of his life where he did start to derail a little bit. He was sort of the one person you could imagine that never had a drink, and he started doing psychedelic drugs way before drinking. And, once he did start drinking, he fucking really drank. And the very first night of drinking, he went up to one of the guys at the comedy store, one of the comic clubs. I can't guarantee which one it was. And he said, if I was to have a drink, what would be a good drink to have? And the person told him a martini. So he went up and he drank 7 martinis in a row and got up on stage. And after that, everyone started to see this real bitter side and dark side to Bill's humour. And there'd be times that he'd just be laying on the floor screaming at people. But it was still funny. It was still quite funny, but it did start to spiral, because what ended up happening is everyone would start handing him up drinks, and it became the show who could get Bill the drunkest the quickest. And he would just be slamming down drinks like no tomorrow. And it got to a point in his life where it became a real problem. And, he started getting shows cancelled and whatnot, and it really started to come to an end. And he did go to a couple of his closest friends and did ask them for a little bit of help and support. And, in those times, no one knew what to do, and mental health wasn't something that we really looked at like we look at today. So they did the best that they could, but, eventually Bill did give up drugs and the alcohol, and he took about 6 months off comedy and just to get his head right. And then he moved to New York, a big city, to get away from everyone that he knew and the shows that he was doing where they were getting him to drink after drink. And he just started focusing and honing in on his art. And that's when his comedy went to the next level. And this next bit, you're going to see that. But I remember, I just love when you see interviews with him and the comments that he made and things like that. He was such a smoker, and he chose smoking over these other drugs that he was doing, like drinking and everything like that. And I haven't had a smoke in probably 10 years, but I was a heavy smoker at the time. And one of the lines he used when someone said to him, "Oh, do you smoke much, Bill?" And he said, "I do. I smoke a lot. I go through about 2 lighters a day." And I just thought that is brilliant. And I had to fucking, remind myself of what that was like. And so in honor of Bill, because he did die at age 32, and most comedians who you see today really don't come in, to themselves till about 32. But because he started performing at such a young age, he really had perfected his art well before that. So I'm going to leave you now on this next bit of where you can see the difference in his act, how clean and how polished it is. And it's just a brilliant bit to leave on. And I hope you guys enjoy this tribute to Bill Hicks just as much as I do. And kids, don't take up smoking.
I finally got my own TV show coming out as a replacement show this fall. Yeah. Thank you. It's not a talk show. Don't worry. It's a half-hour weekly show that I will host entitled Let's Hunt and Kill Billy Ray Cyrus. Thank you. It's fairly self-explanatory. Each week we let the hounds of hell loose. We chase that jarhead, no-talent, cracker idiot all over the globe. Till I finally catch that fruity little ponytail of his, pull him to his knees, put a shotgun in his mouth. Then we'll be back in 94 with Let's Hunt and Kill Michael Bolton. Also look out for our Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer, Marky Mark Christmas special. And I don't want to give away any surprises, but Marky Mark's the first one we catch and kill on that show because his pants kept falling around his ankles and he couldn't run away. I crossbow him right in the ab. Bring the whole kids, the family, and everything. It's a Christmas spectacular. I don't know what my deal is. I'm like a 31-year-old curmudgeon. That's the deal. I went to a dance club the other day, and dragged against my will, And this girl asked me to dance, which I thought was hilarious, Would you like to dance? I'm like, yeah, you read my mind, That's why I'm leaning in the darkest corner closest to the exit, I'm about to boogie. I'm about to cut a rug. But it's weird. Women have this weird myth. You can tell the way a guy is in bed by how he is on a dance floor. I think that's ridiculous. What does it matter? You know what I mean? If a guy is on a dance floor really getting into it, enjoying himself, expressing himself, what does it matter how he is in bed? He's gay. Real men don't dance. They sit, sweat, and curse.
Well, thanks for watching episode number 7. I hope I've done Bill Hicks justice. As I explained, it is quite emotional for me to go through all this stuff of Bill Hicks and the time of my life. And thank you, Firm, for introducing him to me. You can find all my material on Instagram. I'm also on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and most of my podcasts are on YouTube. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Thanks, guys, for your support. And we'll be back next week for Jim Jeffries. Check it out.